here we have the word percent. Okay? Now, some people kind of get worried about the word percent. Now, anyone heard of the term, the expression, kilometers per hour?
Yes.
Right? So, anyone know what the symbol for kilometers per hour looks like? What does it look like? Okay? /H. Right? So, kilometers, this slash represents per, and then obviously hour. So think of the word per cent. And for us, being here in Canada and French being, one of the languages that you're pretty much asked to learn, okay, because we are bilingual and it being English and French, what do you think per cent means, or per cent means? Per 100. Right? So per 100. Okay? That's really what percent means. Per 100. Okay? So it's going to be a very valuable tool to know when we're dealing with percent. So let's look at the following. Write the following percent as a fraction. Okay? So we have 20%. So imagine it like 20 kilometers per hour. So if it's 20%, it's 20 per 100. 20 per 100. Or we write it down as 20 over 100. Okay? 85% means 85 per 100, or 85 over 100. 7%. Same thing. 7 per 100, or 7 over 100. So that's another way of writing percent as a fraction. Okay. So pretty simple, right? So far, so good. Now, write each fraction as a percent. We do this on a daily basis in class. When do we do something like this? When might we do something like this? Marks, exactly. So imagine you get a mark of 21 out of 25. So to do that and to convert it into a percent, what are you going to do? What are you going to do?
Divide.
Divide, right? So we're going to divide 21 by 25. And what do we get?
84%.
No, not yet.
0 decimal.
0 decimal?
84.
84, right? Is it? Give me the rest of the digits.
0 decimal 84.
Is that the whole thing? Yeah. Who's giving me other numbers? Giving me other numbers. Okay. 0 decimal 84. So we've converted our fraction into a decimal. What is the next step, though? Remember, because it's the per cent.
You multiply it by 100.
Exactly. We're going to multiply it by 100. We're going to multiply by 100 to give us the percent sign, and which is now equal to 84%. So if you got 21 out of 25,
Yeah.
you got a mark of 84%. Okay. Let's take the next one. 5 over 8. We're going to divide 5 over 8. And what do we get?
0 decimal 625.
0 decimal
625.
625. Okay, so we've got our decimal value. Now from our decimal value, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? Multiply by 100. And what do we get? 62.5 what? Percent. Okay. Percent. Now if I asked you to the nearest whole percent, what would this be rounded off to? 62.5 would become 63 what? Percent. Okay, 63%. Now here, when might a situation like this come in a test? 16 out of 14. Did we write it in incorrectly? When?
When you have bonus one.
Let's say if you got a bonus mark. So if you get bonus marks, right, we know the percentage is going to be greater than what? Greater than 100. So let's find out how much greater. So divide 16 by 14.
1 decimal 1428.
Okay, so there are a whole bunch. So okay, you just wanted you read it to me. 1 point
1, 4, 2, 8, 5,
8, 5,
7, 1, 4, 3.
1, 4. Okay, so we've got, that's our value, so what are we going to do then with that? We're going to, nope, multiply by
100.
100. So we're going to get 114.2857143%. Now, that's pointless to write. Okay? So, now, here's the question. I'm going to ask you to round off to the nearest hundredth. I'm asking you to the nearest hundredth. Now, what we want to find out first is where is the hundredth? Where is the hundredth? Now, to kind of go back to an older lesson. Sean?
The 8.
This 8. So we look at that 8. We look at the 5 after it. Does it change the 8? Yes, it becomes 9. So the answer would be 114 decimal 29%. So now we've rounded off to the nearest hundredth. So very good. So far, so good. Right? Pretty easy, right?
Bless you.
Let's look at the following. Write each decimal as a percent.
Oh, did you just do this?
No, we did, but it was kind of a middle step. Right? If we have a decimal, right? So what part have we technically done? If it's in a decimal already, we've done what? We've done the dividing, right? Because if we divide a numerator with a denominator, we get a decimal value. So all we're doing is multiplying by 100. So here's the tip. Okay, when converting a decimal, and this is something that you might want to highlight in your notes. When converting a decimal to a percent, simply multiply your decimal value by 100. So 0.225, just multiply it by 100, and we get
22.5.
22.5. But now be careful. What are we asking for? Converting it to a
Whole numbers?
percent. So our answer should include percent sign, right? Because otherwise 22.5 is just a number. What are we talking about? Bless you. What are we talking about? Right? We're talking about percent, so you need to show that. 1.12 multiplied by 100 will give me 112%. And this last one we're going to multiply it by 100, and we're going to get 0.5%. And yes, we can have a decimal value for a percent. Okay? But we're talking about a very small value, right? Very small value. Okay. So here's the tip right here, and this is really important. You might want to, as I said, highlight that in your notes. Right? That's when you're studying. That's what you should be studying, not just practicing, but actually even memorizing that kind of information, right? Because it's really important to know. Now, let's look at the following. Write each percent as a decimal. Write each percent as a decimal. Now, remember what we talked about at the very, very beginning. Right? Here we said, when converting a decimal to a percent, multiply by 100. But now, when we're converting a percent to a decimal, simply divide. So you're doing the opposite. Right? Or, you're doing what we talked about at the very beginning. Remember what we said? 12.5% means what? 12.5 per 100. Right? So, in order to do that, then, what are we going to do though? But we want it as a decimal. We don't want it as that. What's that? That's a fraction. 12.5 over 100 is a fraction. We want it as a decimal. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to take the 12.5, we're going to divide it by 100, and we're going to get 0.125. Now this next one, 2.25%. right? We talked about this way back when we were talking about fractions. How am I going to convert this 1/4? How am I going to convert this one quarter? Nico?
You can write it as a decimal, which is 2.25.
2.25, right? Because this 2 is the whole number, right? The 2 is a whole number. So what we're going to do is we're just going to take the 1, divide it by the 4 to find out what after the decimal number is going to be. But now, is that our decimal that we're asked to convert it?
No.
No. That's not the decimal, because really, this 2.25 is really what is the unit that goes with this? It's percent. We still haven't converted our percent into our decimal. So 2.25% means 2.25 per 100. Per 100. So divide those two, and we get
0.0225.
okay. So, and the last one, same thing. 0.5% really is equal to 0.5 per 100. Okay, so whenever you see the percent sign, think of it as per 100. Okay, per 100. So 0.5 per 100. When we divide them into the calculator, we get 0.00005. Okay, so far so good, right? Pretty simple, right? Calculate the following: 15% of 75. Two ways that actually we can go about doing this. Okay. Now I'm going to show you guys both ways. And it only works with these ones, right? So we're trying to find a percent of a number with this, right? So I want to write 15%, right? 15% is also equal to what? 15 over 100. This is one way of doing it. Keeping it as 15 over 100. The other one is actually converting this 15 over 100 into a decimal. So convert 15% as a decimal, right? So all you're doing is you're just now dividing the 15 by 100. And what do you get? 0.15. So whenever you're asked to find a percent of a number, you take that percent, you convert it into your decimal, okay, and you simply multiply it by that value, 75. This is the simpler way. The way I'm going to show you is the way you can use for any one of these calculations. But the only thing is you have to figure out the order in which they go. Okay? So that's one way of doing it. So what's the answer that we get when we multiply these? 11 decimal 25?
Yep.
Okay. So, now, that answer that we get, it means, let's think of it as a test. Let's say you got 15%. What was the test out of? What was the test out of? Nope. 75. Right? Test was out of 75. So what value that you got out of 75? Right? We know it's not your class, it's the other class. Okay, we get that?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So, what value out of 75 did you get, or did they get out of it? Pardon? 15%, which was equal to how many, but how many marks did they really get out of 75 though? What did they get?
11.
Exactly, 11.25 out of 75. So that's a way to test it out to see, did I get the right answer? Right? Yeah, exactly. They really failed it. Now, the other way is this. We always have the 15 out of 100. We find out on one side, okay, on one side here, we find out what the percentage is out of 100. Okay, so we do the something percent, something per 100. The other side, we figure out what number does the 75 go? Is it at the bottom or is it at the top? Are we trying to find a small, because this percentage is less than 100, right? Is this number 75 going to be at the top or is it going to be at the bottom? Where is it going to be? At the bottom, right? Because we're finding something out of this 75. Okay? So in other words, what's the top going to be? Well, we don't know it. So we put a value of x. So we put x in the part where we don't, in the side that we don't really know. Okay? So, but what's really important is you have to figure out, is the 75 at the top or the bottom? In this question, it'll be always at the bottom. But you'll see an example where it may not be. Okay? So, how do I isolate for the x? This is one way to do it, and this is the way I'm going to suggest that you do it. You take the denominator, and you move it across the equal sign. Now, what function is occurring between these two here? 15 and the 100?
You're
Dividing. If we move anything across the equal sign, right, then something happens to the number. And we always do what? We always do what? We multiply. So we always do the opposite. So if something's being divided on one side, when we move it to the other side of the equal sign, it becomes multiplied. So we're going to multiply 100 by x, right? So, and we're going to multiply 75 by 15. So what we're going to do is we're going to rewrite this equation as follows. 15 times 75 is equal to x, and I'm going to use the dot, times 100. So that dot, remember what we said? Right? I'm using the letter x. Why use the multiplication symbol? Right? Because it might confuse us. So 15 times 75 is going to give me
1,125.
1,125 equals x times 100, 100x. Right? We always put the number in front of the letter when we're multiplying them. Right? Now I want to find out what the value of x is. So I want to isolate for x. So what we want to do is we want to get rid of whatever number is in front of x. To do it, divide it by that number. Right? So if I divide 100 by 100, what do I get? 1. So what am I left with then? X. Right? I divide 100 by 100, and I'm left with x. So whatever the number is in front of x, divide it by that number to get rid of that number. So, but now if I'm doing that on this side, I do the same to the other side. So, what is the value of x?
11.75.
Is it a percent? No, the percent which already was given. That was the 15. So what that means is I got 11.25 out of 75. Calculate the following: 1 1/2% of 500. You may answer it the simple way, right? Because we said that if it's a percentage of a number, and there we've given the number, right? So, how else can I write 1 1/2%? How else? 1.5 what? Percent. Right? 1.5%, and it's a percent of 500. So now I got to convert 1.5% into a decimal, and we get what? What do we get? So 0.015, and we're going to multiply by 500, and what do we get? What do we get? Right? 750? 750? 7.5, thank you. I'm banking on you guys to type these numbers in. Okay, so 7.5. So that's our answer. So technically we got what's the test out of technically? It's out of 500, and we got 7.5 out of the 500. So you can test that out, make sure if you're correct. Now, the long method. Okay? Because, like I said, we're going to learn one method that will help us answer all of them. On the left side, what are we going to put? On the left side, what are we going to put? Pardon? 100%? So what are we going to write? 1.5 over 100. Very good. Very good. Now, on the right side, we have to put the 500. Are you going to put it in the numerator or in the denominator? The denominator. What are we going to put in the numerator? Right, the variable x. We can put a, we can put b, we can put whatever letter we like. Okay. So now, bring our denominators up, and we get 1.5 times 500 equals 100 times x. So 1.5 times 500 is 750 equals, how do I simplify that? 100x. I want to solve for x. So how do I isolate for x? How do I isolate for x? So divided by 100, right? And all I'm left with is x. Now if I do that to that side, I must do it to this side. So 750 divided by 100 is 750 divided by 100 is 7.5. So I get the same exact answer. Okay. So now that I have that, right, remember you can do whatever method you feel comfortable with. So if you have a method that is not shown here, use it. If it gets you the right answer, that's one of the joys about math. There's more than one way to get to an answer. Find 25% of a number is 15. Now, if we're going to think about a test, this 15 in that test means what? So think of it. There are two options that it can fit. It's either the number of marks you got, or what is the test out of. So what does that 15 represent? What is that 15 going to represent? Is it what the test is out of, or is it the marks you got? The marks you got. Right? So you got 15 marks out of x. Right? Remember what we said? The numbers go on the right side. On the left, what are we going to write? On the left side, what are we going to write? 25 over 100. Very good. 25 over 100. That's our percentage. So on one side is the percentage, on the other side is really what the value is. So we do the same thing. We're going to cross them. Okay. So when we bring the x over, we get 25 times x equals 100 times 15. So 25 times x is 25x. 100 times 15 is 1,500. So I want to find the value of x. How do I get rid of the 25 in front of it? What am I going to do? Exactly. Not itself. I'm going to divide it by 25. Because if I divide it by itself, I got to put also x in there, but I don't. So the 25s divide out, leaving me with just x equals 1,500 over 25. 1,500 divided by 25 is 60. So what does the 60 mean? The test was out of 60. So as a check, if you were to check your work, right? If you were to check your work, right? You know you got 15 out of 60. Divide those two, multiply it by 100, and you should get that percentage. Okay, so that's your test to see did you get it correct. Okay. Find 60% of a number is 12. So try that one out. On the left side, our percentage, 60%, we want to write it as a fraction, and it becomes 60 over 100. Now on the right side, 12, is it going to be in the numerator or denominator? Numerator. Right, because it's going to be 12 out of something. That's what we're trying to find, our x. So we cross them, and we get 60 times x equals 100 times 12. So 60 times x gives us just 60x. Remember, you always write the number in front of the variable. Equals 100 times 12, 1200. Right, we want to find for x. So what are we going to divide this? How do we get rid of the 60? Divided by 60. By 60, not by itself, right? Because we include the x. And so we get x is equal to 1200 divided by 60. X is equal to 20. X equal to 20. So what was the test out of? It was out of 20, and we got 12 out of the 20. So if we want to do a check, right, what's our check going to be? What's our check going to be, Lisa?
12 out of 6.
Nope.
20.
Out of 20, right? So 12 out of 20, and then multiply by
100.
100. And what should we get? 60. So we should get that percentage. What percent of 800 is 200? Using my method, what's on the left side?
800 over 100.
Left side.
X of 100.
X over 100, right? We don't know the percent. That's what we're trying to find. We're trying to find what is it out of 100 that we're trying to find. We're at percentage, right? What's on the right side? 200. So, here's what we can do. Same thing, right? Switch these over and we get 800x equals 200 times 100. All right, so 800x equals 20,000. All right, divide both sides by
800.
x is equal to 25 what? Percent. Now, that's the long way for these ones. But like I said, you can still use the same method, right? What is this test out of? What is this test out of? 800. What did you get? 200. So why not just divide these by each other and multiply it by 100?
That's what I did.
And that's how you can get the answer quicker. Here's where things become a little bit difficult. But it really, we're using the same exact methods as we've used. Okay? Here, so in a problem solving. A sales rep hopes to increase her income by 20% over last year. If she made $45,000 last year, how much does she hope to make this year?